Hi, everybody. This is Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. We are talking football today with one of your favorites, former Viking safety, Anthony. You know him as Ant Harris. He's just a phenomenal guy, first of all. I can't wait to catch up with him, but we're also going to pick his football brain. So that's coming up.
That's right. Anthony was always one of the best guys to talk to in the Vikings locker room. Great to catch up with him today. This is Dawn of Sports. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Best way to listen to this show or any of our many shows at talknorth.com, including all of our football shows. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's easy. We've started our fantasy football show with Kevin Gorg and Randy Shaver. We've got 3 pure Viking shows on the network, plus Dawn often delves into the Vikings. I want to thank our sponsors, Lexus of Wayzata, Aquarius Home Services, and Minnesota Masonic Charities. Back to Dawn.
All right. Well, thanks so much. So without further ado, Ant Harris joins the program. Ant, how are you doing? I have missed your smiling face.
I'm doing well. I've been taking care of family, working on some things off the field in the business space, as well as working on some things, trying to do some things in the sports space as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. I had the luxury of seeing you at training camp. And, you know, when you come just walking down at training camp, you can see not only did my face light up, all the fans are like, oh my gosh, how cool is it for you to come back? And I know you live in Minnesota, but you know, after you played 6 years with the Vikings, then you went to the Eagles, the Broncos, and the Eagles again. When you come back into Vikings territory, it is like you never left and the fans just want to embrace you. Do you feel that love when you go to places like that?
Yeah, it's always cool. When I go different places, whether it's catching some Timberwolves games and fans look over and they see me and they might be a little bit surprised. It's always exciting to know that my time spent in Minnesota has impacted some lives and, to left people with some good memories in terms of on the field. But also, I think most importantly is kind of the love I showed and appreciation I showed for the fan base and that they still appreciate it enough to, be excited to see me.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, you played 6 seasons here with the Vikings. And many people will say, hey, 2019 is the year that we remember you, perhaps the most on the field. And it might be different for the players. That's what I always like to ask. So like the fans always like, remember when he was the co-leader in interceptions? He had like 6. And then it was with Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White. Remember it? Like they'll just tick down those stats in those years. They don't forget. Was 2019 personally for you maybe one of the best that you had in the NFL?
Yeah, I think I would say that was probably my best year in the NFL, where I just I felt really dialed in. Had worked extremely hard a lot of seasons leading up to that, and each year I felt like I kind of improved on the field with just my performance and my role. But 2019 was really the year where I felt like I had my best year, and everything was just flowing well as far as with guys on the field, the coaching, seeing the game, really being involved with the fans and that stuff. So that would I would say be my best year.
One thing I've always loved about you is you came out fighting because I remember when you were in Virginia in college, and then I think you had a torn labrum right before the draft was happening. And because they're all like, oh, well, keep your eye on this guy, keep your eye on this guy. And then you went undrafted, and then you signed with the Vikings. That whole process, just in terms of your mental, I mean, in addition to dealing with the physical, the mental toughness that you have to have, because I do remember then they waived you, you're on the practice squad, and then you came up. Like you battled your tail off to earn that position. Do you look back on those days and be like, that really kind of set the tone for me to play so long, to play 8 seasons in the NFL?
Yeah, I definitely look back at that moment. And I believe prior to that, I'd had moments like that where I really had to battle back stemming from high school and having my best year as a junior in high school and getting injured with a broken leg and kind of seeing recruiting take a step back to then restart that process and build up my career and my health through the college ranks as well. So that space and that moment felt familiar of just having a good junior year in college, coming back. Being hurt with the torn labrum and hand surgery and not being able to perform and showcase my talent at the combine. So for me, I already had in my head that, I had ability there. And it was just all about, my mentality of just staying focused and being patient and getting myself back healthy and waiting for the opportunity. So that was my whole mindset my first year and being waived. And I'm like, okay, well, I've always just needed an opportunity, and from there I can take an advantage. So even though I got waived, me signing with the practice squad, it was just
Mm.
about showing and proving that I should be there on the roster and trying to be a valuable asset to the team any way I could. And with that patience and trying to be a professional, I was able to get a roster spot later in the season, and from there just continue to work my way up.
Not many people can do that. First of all, you have to have the talent, first of all. Okay, not many people have the talent, but not many people can do that mentally, time and time again. Some people are like, not again. I don't have it in me. What goes on in your brain when you're like, okay, I gotta do this again?
Yeah, yeah, it can get taxing. Me, I just tried to rely on just like faith and look back at opportunities where that happened and I was able to overcome it, and the great things and the great opportunities that I received after just, staying consistent and looking for that small crack in the door because there's always one there. And so for me it would be draining at times. But I think along the way, I had good people around me who, saw me, saw my work, and kind of gave me some reassurance that, what I was doing was, they were taking notice. And so for me, it was just about continuing to do that. And 6 years of doing it, you get a little bit taxing and you just try to rejuvenate yourself. And I think from that standpoint, I was able to do that over the years. And then COVID, that was probably the biggest one that was a little bit tougher to overcome.
Ooh, that was tougher to overcome that for everybody. And then right after that, you went to Philly too, right? So,
Yeah.
um, how was that adjustment to go to first of all to be like, hey, listen, I got to fly, literally. How was that?
Yeah, it was a tough process. Prior to that, coming back and then COVID and having that season, and there was a lot of change there from,
Mm,
the isolation aspect of not having family and friends be able to come in town, visit games, and some of the things that probably kept me going and was able to kind of replenish my cup weren't really there. But going to Philly was something that I embraced. Change is kind of inevitable. And so you
mm.
can only just try to adapt to it or, just succumb to what it's arising towards you. And so for me, I just tried to embrace the new environment. I was a little bit closer to home on the East Coast. And so my family was able to catch some games. But it was really just about, connecting with the guys in that building, competing at a high level and just trying to help the team any way I could.
Does it boggle the mind that for you, Harrison Smith is still playing?
No, no, it doesn't. It doesn't bother me one bit. After spending 6 years with that guy on the field, a lot of times over at his place, talking football, hanging out, seeing how he prepares. I'm not surprised at it. Oftentimes, you look at a guy's age and you think that they might start to be slowing down, but he's doing everything in the off season to prepare his body, prepare his mind to continue to go out there and play at a high level. And I think with his athleticism, it hasn't really deteriorated, but his mind and understanding of the game is so well that he's able to continue to put himself in good positions where he can make plays and not, hurt himself with where he is or whether his speed and things like that may be decreasing. But I don't really see that from him when I watch him.
What did you learn, if anything, from him? Because, Harry has his own personality. You also had Sendejo, who had his crazy personality, who knew the Eagles as well. You had a really kind of cool group of guys in the safety room and all the defensive guys there. But what did you specifically learn, if anything, from Harry?
Well, I just learned, how he took care of his body, looking at his
Mm,
diet, a little bit about bit how he studied the game. And that's kind of how we actually became even more closer is just, talking football, his love and passion for the game of not just playing, but his understanding and level of studying and being a student of the game. He had the mindset of a coach, which um, I later kind of adapted with me also being fascinated with the X's and O's and the scheme aspect. So we had a lot of great conversations. Obviously, we worked extremely hard in practice. And in preparation for the games, we would also send text message videos of different plays that we saw, and we wanted to be on the same page of how we saw the play playing out and where each other would be. So that way in the game, we can move on one accord, and that made the game fun. So I learned a lot from him about just studying the game, being on the same page as kind of like your running partner in terms of both safeties out there, as well
mhm.
as talking to the corners and the linebackers and just being on one accord with the team.
So we're going to get into. I'm going to pick your brain about what you have seen so far from this team, if you watch the preseason game. But if you had to pick for yourself personally, one of your favorite moments, maybe it was an interception of yours or a play of yours, like what sticks out in your mind from your playing days? Maybe with the Vikings, could be with another team, but I'm guessing Vikings. That really sticks in your mind as that one I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the things that I remember the most, like on field play, is just how connected we were. Particularly during that 2019 year, I made a lot of plays, but there were other guys who made a lot of plays, and over that 6 year span to be able to follow each of your teammates' journey of like guys in their later years, still performing, still playing at a high level, as well as younger guys who come behind you to kind of watch each other's progress, and then see those results show up on the field on game day. The camaraderie and the genuine excitement, is one thing that I particularly remember. I remember like Eric Kendricks made a play and got an interception, and we returned it, and we run down to the end zone, and he's doing like a celebration. And then I remember another week, like I get an interception, and we run down, we take a photo, and next week he's doing a handstand, and so it was just it was really just the excitement for each other for the success that we were having. Plays where that year I get an interception and I'm doing well, and the next week Harrison he gets one, and we're all just like they're coming, like your opportunities coming. You know, if I'm having success, that means success for us as a team is close. So I may have gotten an interception this week, and next week you're probably going to get one, and so to be able to just cheer for one another's success like that, and collectively come together and trying to get a lot of wins during that time. That's what I remember the most.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, Anthony, you played for three very passionate football fan bases. But I
Hmm.
also, I've traveled a lot. I've been around in these stadiums. Seems like there are three different personalities of fan bases. What did you find them to be like?
Yeah, that's the one thing. As a kid coming in, you anticipate every fan base is like they're the same. But you once you're in the NFL and you travel to different places, you quickly realize that not every fan base is the same. And so I just remember the dynamic of, from coming in as a rookie and playing at TCO and having the games outside and kind of how that felt, looking up in the stands and you're seeing fans with their snowsuits on and they're drinking beers and beers are frozen, and thinking about that aspect, to then we travel down to Florida and it's extremely hot and it's just different environments, and different levels and different mentalities with it. I'm extremely proud to have been a participant at a number of different organizations and get the different perspectives because it really only brings light on the experiences that I've had, and it really makes you appreciate them all even that much more.
All right, let's take care of the business, and we'll get back to Don chatting with former Viking Anthony Harris. Thanks to Anthony for joining us. Again, thanks to Aquarius Home Services. Big thanks to a great Minnesota company, helps so many people, Minnesota Masonic Charities.
Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz.
And thanks, as always, to one of our newer sponsors, Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood. And back to Don.
All right. Well, Ant, I don't know how many times I ask former players, and either they don't really pay attention to the teams that are going on now, or they kind of casually drop in, or some are rabid. Like they dissect plays and kind of, pick it apart the same way as if they were playing. Where do you fall on that spectrum, especially like this year's, and we'll just say the defense, Brian Flores and his defense this year. What's your perspective on it from how you watch it?
Oh yeah, when we talk about teams and how they're doing, I get excited. I've followed the Vikings since I left, and I kept up with games. And now that I've had a few years away from actually actively playing, I've continued that. And so when I look at the game now, I still look at it from a a, a player or executive perspective on like how the scheme's performing, roster additions and acquisitions that they can have. And I really look at it with the eye of like, how can this organization reach a level that, maybe they haven't reached in the recent years and like championship level. But when I look at that team, I like the scheme what Flores is doing. I did a lot of podcasting actually last year, following the Vikings with some other Vikings networks. And we really looked at each game. We talked about pregame matchups and the scheme offenses versus defenses versus individual player matchups and keys to the game. So over the years, I've really followed them. This year, they actually acquired some pieces that I thought they could utilize to, kind of take them to the next level. So I'm excited to see how the addition to Flores schemes of, adding some more interior defensive linemen that can continue to play all four downs, be able to stop the run and transition and create pressure from the defensive line. Because I feel as though his scheme adds a lot of pressure to the quarterback with the different looks and the different blitzes. And if he can stop the run and allow those guys to play simple football on some earlier downs, I think it'll cause disruption in later downs and it'll only elevate what they've been able to do defensively. So I really like the additions of those guys on the defensive line, as well as acquiring, Isaiah Rodgers at corner to bring in some more talent, experience, and speed. And then also retaining guys like Harrison and Metellus, who's versatile as well and who's worked really hard over the years to put himself in position where he is now.
Yeah, you talk about Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, and you get those two beasts in one off season. Everyone behind them are like, yes, thank you, Lord. Like we need to have these guys up front. And then when you see how Brian Flores uses players, like you mentioned Josh Metellus, he's not like your traditional safety, like sometimes he's playing linebacker, sometimes he's playing all these different things. I call it the shell game of how B-Flow likes to move around. Do you ever think of like, ooh, I would have loved to eat that up and be used in different ways? When you see someone like Metellus used so creatively, does that get you excited even as a former player to watch how that happens?
Oh yeah, it gets me excited. And I tell people all the time after spending years in Mike Zimmer's scheme, from the disguises and the different looks, it's somewhat similar. I tell people that what Flores is doing is a bit more of an evolution, and I think as he continues to acquire pieces, we might actually see it become a little bit more simplistic. But I don't think he'll go away from that too much because that's been in his kind of DNA as a coach. And so I've watched him when he coached down with the Dolphins. And so when he signed with the Vikings, I knew immediately that he would have a positive impact on what the defense would be able to do in terms of creating turnovers and being stout. And so now that he's kind of gotten, further along with the organization, and he's able to then add some additional pieces um, that would help his scheme, I think that it's only going to be a positive thing. So I look at it and I'm just like, it's almost like a rerun of that, like 2019 or
Hmm.
2017 to 19 era where you have a lot of really key pieces, from like the defensive line to like the linebackers are solid. And he's has like Van Ginkel on the edge, who's also very versatile as a pass rusher or a linebacker. And so when you
Hmm.
have guys like that with his scheme paired with Metellus, who's been versatile, and then Harrison Smith, who also has the ability to play some of your deep safety and then do some stuff around the line of scrimmage as well, it really just adds to what they're able to do and not allow offenses to um, play certain plays based off of tendencies and where players are.
Yeah, and you got a guy like Jonathan Grenard that can do that too, right? Another guy that every single year comes back kind of keyed up for more. The mentality has to be there as well to be eager to like, okay, all right, what are we doing this year? Have you've noticed that in the players, right? Like, okay, what are we going to dial up this year?
Yeah, I think even to point out Gennard, and that's somebody who when I took a look at him last year, I'm like, wow, they have really two guys on the edge with Gennard and Van Ginkel who are really being disruptive. And they have Phillips in there as well, who's able to be stout and stop the
Mm.
run. But then once you just keep adding guys to the rotation, to be able to keep those guys on a defensive line fresh, and you almost get to a point where you have 8 guys rotating and rushing the passer or helping stop the run each play, it really only adds to their endurance. But that has to be exciting for the fans to see the additions as well as guys returning, to the point where we have to kind of make an extremely long list of all the guys on the roster because it's like we're almost um, forgetting some people who had really big years last year. So I would definitely say, it's exciting. I know those guys, I went out to a practice, I know they're out there working. And from there, it's just, hey, we have the pieces here, but it will be up to us to, come to work every day, do the work, and, try to accomplish great things one day at a time.
Yeah, I like how you bring it up because it's true. It's like right as we're talking, I'm like, yeah, there's Isaiah Rogers, but there's Byron Murphy Jr. Like you just keep
Yeah.
going down the list. Like you're like, oh, wait a minute, and he also had a phenomenal season, and it very much does ring true. Like those years where you guys were, you had one guy might pick it off for a pick six. Like you're doing the points, and then you're doing the celebrations. It rings true, very reminiscent of that era when you guys were doing it too, not so long ago. And you mentioned Mike Zimmer. And, sometimes people hear Minnesota, it's easy to give him his lumps. But in terms of like right, that it's easy to say,
Yeah.
oh, this is a new, fresh coaching staff. But I like how you give him his due in terms of his defensive genius, in terms of now B-Flow is taking it, modernizing it, so to speak. What did you like best about playing under Zimmer, or what do you think, like you learned from him the most?
Well, he required a lot of detail and a lot of understanding to be able to play his defense. And so, he was someone who you had to go out each day and show that like, you understand where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to be there. And then you just have to make the play. But I remember from those years, we had a lot of talent. Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith, Barr, Kendricks, and then also with the defensive line of Daniil and Linville. All of those guys, they were extremely talented. But I remember him always saying, him and Coach Patterson is, you have to do your job so the guy next to you can do his job. Do your job so well that it makes the
Right.
guy next to you job that much more easier. So that was one thing that I think really stuck out with me, as well as the sophisticated looks and the disguises and stuff like that. It made it fun, but as chaotic as it might look at time, even if you look at Flores' defense, there is a lot of discipline and a lot of understanding that goes into those type of things. And so for me, I'm definitely excited about that. That the opportunity that they have, and we didn't accomplish what we wanted in terms of winning the Super Bowl under them, but I do think like the standard of just like having a good defense, as a defensive guy, might be a little bit biased. I love when a team can control the game defensively, but I mean, I'm also excited for the offense. Seeing the additions that they have had this offseason has been exciting, for me as a fan now, watching the game and kind of watching the team be built. So I'm excited for what they've been doing. I think Kevin O'Connell is a great coach. I think he has a great relationship with the players, and for as much as he's seems like a very nice guy, kind of on the sideline, I'm sure he has his way of requiring that discipline and consistency from the players as well.
In the summer of 1995, DVDs arrived in stores and Seinfeld dominated TV viewing. And a local Minnesota nature show called Minnesota Bound, hosted by Ron Shera and Raven the Black Lab, hit the air on Care 11 on NBC. We're celebrating 30 years of storytelling with a TV special on Sunday, August 17th. Check out mnbound.com for more information.
Anthony, one more question for you. You've been out of the league for a couple of years now. What was playing in the NFL? Was it a good experience? Were you glad you did it, or is it a hard way to live your life?
No, I think for me, I love the game. I love the game of football. So I think now, even since I've been done playing, that's why I continue to follow the game. And then in the future, last year I did a little bit of intern coaching, which I knew was, something that I would be interested in, but with the hours and stuff like that, and now having a family myself, I've kind of taken a second look on whether I would want to do that. Maybe looking at doing something on the executive side with, player development. But I can't say that my career I would have regretted, playing football. I enjoyed it, from the workouts to the camaraderie, to the X's and O's. And it's really just blessed me and my family and gave us an opportunity to really do different things later on in life.
Before I have one question about being, you're a girl dad, but before I get there, you mentioned the offense real quickly. There's so much pressure on JJ McCarthy when you're a rookie quarterback and you're given the keys to the kingdom, but he seems to be handling it so smoothly. What advice, if you were to give him anything, even coming from the defensive side of the ball, do you like what you see out of him? Would there be anything like you would say to him if you had a moment? What would you say to a guy wearing the pressure of the season already?
Yeah, I've watched him a little bit. I would just tell him to be himself.
Mm.
I think the system fits, who he is as a player. I would just tell him to like block out the outside noise of what the expectations may be and who the pressure's on. Because honestly, I believe the pressure's, it's on all those guys. Once you build a roster that's has the talent and you take a look at the sheet and they're supposed to be, a really good team, the pressure's on everybody to show up and perform. And so I just tell him that's no different than when he was back at Michigan and, had a big game, or Ohio State or whatever it may be. Just focus on the process, focus on the process of meeting with the coaches, learning the offense, learning the wrinkles, connecting and building a connection with the guys at the receiver core and tight end and the offensive line. And then as well as guys on the defense, pick their brains as well. There's a lot of experienced veteran players. And so even in situations when you do well and you make a play, you go to those guys and ask, hey, what'd you see? even though that play was a success, is there anything that I could have done better on it, even though I got the result that I wanted? So really just focusing on the process, being a student of the game, and just having fun. I would tell them just have fun and go be yourself, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, and he's going to be a first-time dad. You've been down that road. You're a girl dad now.
Yeah.
Is life-changing, isn't it? Like you said, you know that you don't want to go into coaching because you want to have time with your family and kind of give that balance. But it enriches your life too, right? How are you different now? And congrats. I know it's been a couple of
Oh
years,
man,
but
it's
congrats.
yeah, it's awesome. She's about to be 2 in September.
Yeah.
And so, one thing about as a player, I was a little nervous about, having a child during the season. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to be in a situation where, I have a game, I want to be present for my childbirth and different things of that sort. So I made it through that, but just being there on the day to day, having a whole new level of umbrella or a covenant of a person who's like your responsibility, and
Mhm.
that protection aspect, and just being there to seeing her first time crawl, first time walking, hearing certain words, to then see the person there really just coming to as they learn the world and become aware of new aspects of, oh, it's a ball, oh, it's a car, it's a plane. So just the newness of being there with that first level of understanding, it's exciting to kind of watch life grow and develop kind of before your eyes.
Oh, well, Aunt, I am so happy for you. I'm so proud of not only your body of work as a player, but like I said at the beginning of this, as a person, but just to hear you talk about being a dad and seeing her be, little by little form her personality. It just makes
Hmm.
me even more happy for you that you've embraced this side of your life and your career, and you're just opening doors left and right with your family and new career opportunities. I hope we stay in touch because I love how you analyze the game, and I'd love to pick your brain again. But I just want you to know that I am so happy for you in every aspect of your life.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you all for having me on. I appreciate your kind words. And yeah, in the future, I'd be looking forward to, having more conversations. Who knows? Maybe in the future, it won't be the coaching space, but maybe it'll be in some other realm of helping players or helping breaking down or evaluating as well. So
Well,
we'll
there's
see.
no better person to help a player than Aunt Harris. I can just tell you that from following you for all these years and knowing you. So thank you so much for joining us. And I just wish you the best. Well, you'll keep us posted if anything big happens, right?
Yeah, I will. I will.
Okay. All right, Aunt, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you having me.